Hello, I'm Richard McPherson. I'm the Chief Instructor at Let's Ride Motorcycle Training, and in this lesson we're going to be talking about the controls of the bike and how they all work. Now this is the Yamaha YBR125, which is a manual transmission motorcycle, but I'll also go through the controls of the scooters, the automatics, after I've finished going through the controls of this bike. If you are riding a scooter on your CBT, it's worth listening to this description because the controls are shared between the bikes. Some of the controls are the same, some are different, but some are the same. So it's worth briefing yourself on the manual as well as the automatic. Not to mention, if you're thinking about going onto a manual bike in the future, this is a good way of just getting to grips with the different controls of the manual compared to the automatic. So if we start at the back of the bike, then we have this pedal here which just flips down. Now this is for a passenger, a pillion. Now can you take a pillion as a learner rider? Well, hopefully you're shaking your head at the screen at the moment, because no, you cannot. There's a couple of things you can't do as a learner rider. One is to take passengers, and the other one is you can't go on motorways. So this is redundant, we're not worrying about that. If we move forward, this is where you put your foot as a rider, so your left foot goes on there, and then just in front of that we have the gear selector lever, which will go down and it goes up. I'll do a more thorough briefing on the gear shifter after this lesson. So here we have the side stand, and the bike is actually on the main stand. So there's pros and cons to each stand, and I'll cover the differences on a different lesson. So that's it for down here. So if we move up to the handlebar controls now. Okay, so moving up to the handlebar controls then. So down by what will be your left thumb is the horn. So the horn is a very useful tool to attract attention to yourself. Now we've got to do whatever we can to get ourselves seen on the road, be it road positioning, brightly coloured clothing, brightly coloured helmets, lights on your bikes, brightly coloured bike, all those kinds of things. And a horn is another way of attracting attention to yourself. Don't be afraid to use it. Remember that people don't look for bikes. We only account for around about 1% of the road population. So people aren't tuned in to look for motorcycles. They're looking for cars, looking for vans, lorries, but not motorcycles. So we've got to get ourselves seen. So if you don't think someone's looking at you or has seen you, don't be afraid to get on your horn. Get on that horn, wake them up, get their attention. Oh, there's a motorbike, before it's too late. So don't be afraid to use the horn. Then we move up to the indicators. Now these are what's called push to cancel indicators. So to activate the indicator, we push it across in the direction that we want to be turning. So if I push the button to the left, you'll see that the left indicators are now flashing. To cancel the indicators, we push the button in. So if I want to indicate to the right, I push the lever over to the right and then push the button in. Nice and easy. If you need to flick from one side to the other, you don't need to cancel and then reapply. So put it across to the left and then push it across to the right. It does the job. Into cancel. Nice and easy. At the top here we have the main beam and dip beam. So the main headlight has two positions, dip and main. So dip beam, so the angle of the front headlight is pointing down, so it gives you a fair view up the road at night time. But it's not very good at seeing all the way down the road, or particularly wide spread of light. And that's where the main beam comes in. So put the main beam on, that gives you a broader spread of light up the road. You can see down the road a lot further, but it's very dazzling for other road users. So if you've got any oncoming traffic or any vehicles ahead of you, you must be on dip beam. It's also quite dangerous to use it in fog, because it literally dazzles you, bounces you off, or bounces off the fog and dazzles you and you can't see a thing. So misty, foggy conditions, get back down to dip beam. Okay. And then finally on the left handlebar we have this lever here, which is your clutch, which we'll talk about in more depth shortly. So that's the left handlebar. Okay, moving on to the instrument panel then. So we've got various bits and bobs here. On the left side we have speedometer. So we've got an outer and an inner readout. So the outer readout is your miles per hour speed. Inner dial is your kilometers per hour speed. So in this country you're on miles per hour, so look on the outer dial there. Be careful with sort of Chinese bikes. They often have kilometers per hour on the outside, and the miles per hour is tiny little writing on the inside of the bike there. Then we have total mileage the bike's done, and we've got a trip meter at the bottom, which we can reset with the dial on the side of the clock there by twisting it. So if you want to see how far you travelled on a particular trip, you can reset that to 0, and there you go. Okay, in the middle at the top there we've got fuel gauge. So this particular bike's got a full tank of fuel there. So that needle that will slowly go down as the fuel runs out, and then when you're getting close to that red zone, get to a petrol station and fill up with unleaded fuel. Okay, the right hand dial then is your engine speed. So this is in 1,000 revolutions per minute. So it goes from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 10, at which point you hit the red zone. And the red zone, if the needle goes into the red zone, you can seriously damage your engine. So never ever let it get in the red zone. And you can do that by utilising your gears. So that's the rev counter. And then we've got a series of lights on the bottom of this. So you can see the green light with an N in it. That means neutral. So that means that the engine is not engaged to the gearbox at present. So you can rev the engine, you can wheel the bike around. No problems at all there. The engine is not engaged to the gearbox. If I put the left indicator on, you can see the left light flashing. Put the right indicator on, you see the right light flashing. So that's nice and easy. Now when I initially turn the bike on, you'll see an orange light. That's your engine management system. That's your fuel injectors and things priming. Try and let that go off before you start the bike, otherwise the bike may struggle to start. If that comes on when you're riding, there's an issue with your fuel management. You'll know it because the bike will feel awful. Something's wrong, you need to get it fixed. Then this one over here is your main beam warning light. Now you'll notice that if I put the main beam on, that light doesn't come on because the lights aren't on. The lights come on automatically when the engine starts. So I'm going to start the engine up, and now you can see you got your main beam light. So that's what that one is. Nice and easy. Now you see me use the ignition. So to use the ignition, your key goes in, twist it clockwise to the right, that switches the bike on, and then anti-clockwise to the off position, switches it all off. But we don't start the engine with the ignition, that's got a separate button. So once the bike is on, it's on. So if you stall an engine, you don't need to reset the ignition, you use the start button. There's another position which is the steering lock. So this is just a security aid. So we put the steering all the way to the left, push the key down, and then turn that all the way, and it locks the steering there. Just a preventative measure there for undesirables taking your bike. Not massively effective, it can be broken reasonably easily, so don't rely on it. Get some better security like a big chain. Okay, right handlebar then. So we have front brake. This lever here is your front brake, much like a push bike. And we'll talk more about brakes in a moment. This twisting operation, this is your throttle. Okay, so it's a bit counterintuitive. You go backwards to go forwards. So if I roll this backwards, the engine speed will increase, and if the bike's in gear, it will go faster. And then off. So roll it forward, we'll get the engine speed down, and you'll slow down. It's all spring loaded as well, so if there's no pressure on it, it'll reset to the off position. So if you need to shut the power off completely, very, very quickly, just lightly release your grip, or just rapidly rotate your hand forward. Okay, so it's bringing the engine speed up, shutting it down. Then you've got this button underneath here, that is your starter. So when the ignition is on, the bike's in neutral, you press that and it will start. So let it sort itself out, let the engine management light go off, press start, and now the throttle works. So backwards, engine speed goes up, forwards, engine speed goes down. And that's that. Let's switch the bike off. Turn it off like that. Okay, so on the other side of the bike, the right hand side, then we've got an additional lever here. This is the back brake, and this is where your foot goes on the right hand side. And that is the controls of a motorcycle. Okay, so scooter controls are very straightforward. They're all on the handlebars, which makes life very, very easy. So if you look on the left handlebar then, so we have the back brake there. That's your back brake lever, which you just squeeze like that. Then here we have your main beam and dip beam. And then you have your indicators, push to cancel, so cross to activate, in to cancel, cross to activate, in to cancel, horn. Then moving on to your display here, you've got speedo. So this one does have kilometers per hour as the main readout, so we've got to be a bit careful. We're looking at miles per hour, which is the inner readout. Total mileage the bike's done. We've got indicators left, indicator right, warning lights, main beam warning light in the middle, and you've got fuel gauge just here. Then move over to the right handlebar then, so you've got front brake and throttle. And then the ignition is just here, so key goes in, turn to the right to start the bike, and you get the start button is there. Now scooters, it won't start unless there's a brake on. Now normally we use the back brake, so it gives us better control over the throttle, but because I'm standing on this side of the bike, I'm just going to put the front brake on, press the start, and the engine starts. And to switch it off, you just turn the key to the off position. So that's nice and easy. And that's it for scooters.